Alright, today we're replacing the coolant pump. I've already removed the side panel with a 2.5mm Allen key. Next we're going to purge all the coolant out of the lines. So first thing I want to do is identify the intake. So I'm just spinning the bottle to remove the cap. Pull these tubes out. There's a shorter and a longer one. So your shorter one is the return. So what we're going to do is we're going to pull the tube for the longer one, the intake. We want to pull air into the line. So I'm just pulling it straight off the top. And you can kind of just rest it up here while we turn it on to purge it. Alright, I've just turned on the machine and just the emergency stop, not the actual power to the control panel, and release the print head. Move the print head towards the middle and the pump will kick on. You see it pulling air in. Once you start seeing bubbles in the coolant bottle, you can turn it off. Alright, so the coolant pumps here, this is what we're replacing. We have 2 tubes and a power plug to disconnect to remove this whole assembly. This piece of aluminum is going to come out with it. So it's this output tube right here. Unplug that. And then the power plug has a little tab you have to push. Push that tab, pull it apart. And then up top here is where it comes in and it travels through this piece of aluminum before it hits the pump. So we have to disconnect that tube up there. It may not be a bad idea to label these. You can tell from the length that which one goes to the pump and which one goes to the aluminum. So it's not too bad, but when you get to replacing it, you may want to, because we're going to disconnect this one as well, you may want to label them. So we're going to loosen these 2 Allen keys, 5mm. You don't have to completely unscrew them because they're T-nuts. They just sit in that slot. So just loosen them until this is free. And then you have your whole assembly out, and now we can replace the pump. Alright, I've labeled the input here. You have arrows indicating the input, output. So I just put in right here with some blue tape. Go ahead and disconnect this silicone tube. You can just pull it straight off. And you'll see you don't have to label the wires because you have an indicator right here, a red dot on both the pumps, showing you where the red wire is going to go. So we're going to desolder this connection. We have to transfer this to our new pump. So I'm just untwisting this loom, get it out of the way. Alright, we're going to use our side cutters to trim back this heat shrink at the terminal.
Bright, like vibrant color. That's good for like visibility outdoor signs. Because that's what these probably do right now.
Now I just take my solder iron, and it's already heated up. Put a little solder on the tip, and then just heat up this terminal and pull on the wire slightly, and it'll come right off. Same thing here. So now we have our wire removed. Now we can remove this pump and put our new one on. So we got 4 Allen keys right here, 2mm. And then either 1/4 inch or number 2 Phillips here to dismount this pump. Take the new pump and just make sure your little orange O-rings stay on there. Sometimes they fall off. I just lucked out and they stayed. Line it up. Alright, got it mounted to the plastic. Alright, when you go to mount the new pump on, make sure that you mount it with the wire side up, facing up. So to tell which way your aluminum was, the bare barb right here where you remove the tube is the upside. So it's going to go like this. Wires toward the empty barb. Alright. And now we're just going to remove these wires. Same way. Trim off this heat shrink and heat it up and pull it off. And just pull it back a little bit just so you can get your solder iron in there. Alright, and put a little more solder on here, and put a little more on here. Just heat it up. Some fresh stuff on there. And then dress up your wire here, get the old stuff off as well. Then we have some heat shrink here we're going to put on before we attach it. Alright, I'm just going to strip these wires. And put a little solder on the end of these.
Sign? Is that sign vinyl or is it HPD? This is sign.
And make sure your heat shrink didn't fall off. Nothing more annoying than getting it on there and heat shrink's not on there. Identify the red dot is where the red wire will go, so we'll do this black wire first. You may want to use some pliers here just so you don't burn yourself. And you're just going to hold it up to the terminal and then touch it with the iron and try and hold it as steady as possible. Can be the tricky part. Once you see it start melting, hold it on there for like a 2-second count and then let go. Hold it as steady as possible. And then always give it a little test here. Tug on it, it's on there good. Alright, that's on there good, and that's on there good.
We have a special tool for it.
And then move your heat shrink up over the connector. Like so. Heat gun or hair dryer would be best, but a lighter works too. Just real quick on there. Like so. And now I'm going to wrap this loom up and then we'll do the reinstall. Okay, I've reconnected the input, removed my blue tape. With these T-nuts, you want to loosen them until they're just only on there by a couple threads. And the idea of these nuts here is when you put them in the slot, the first turn of the wrench is what turns them 90 degrees. So line these up like so, parallel with the slot, and then we're going to flip this around. Get it in there like so, and you got to move it up until you can see that this tube's going to plug in correctly. And the first turn on these is pretty important. You want to get a nice quick turn on them. and you'll feel it catch. There's a way to get these T-nuts wrong, so after you think you have it tight, you're going to want to give it a little jerk and make sure it's on there. So just make sure you got it on there right. What'll happen is the T-nuts will jam in the slot and they'll be parallel with it still, and you'll be able to pull it right off. So now, here's our output we're going to plug back in. And then the input into the aluminum up here, plug that back in. And then our power cord here. Snap that back on. And you can kind of secure this right in this channel right here, the loom. And you have now successfully replaced your coolant pump. Okay, we've powered on. Before you move the head to turn the pump on, you're going to want to reconnect this intake so you actually pull the coolant in. And now, also check, make sure your power plugs are connected. And now when we move the head off, you can see it start pulling it in there. Good to go.